Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. Today we will be creating a snowy house scene using the Sweet Poppy Aperture Snowflake Square Stencil and the Nellie's Choice Christmas Time Snowy House stamp. We will also incorporate the Fluff It paste, or if you'd like you can use other snow effect textures to create a textured snow surface. So here are the supplies we're going to be using today. We will start out with a multifarious smooth and supreme 7-inch by 7-inch cardstock. We're going to cut that down to 6 inches by 6 inches. We will then have a frame out of a color cardstock that we will cut to be 6.5 by 6.5 inches. And then for our card base, I have actually just cut a 13-inch by 6.5 inch and then folded it in half. The stamp that we're going to use today is the Nellie's Choice Christmas Time Snowy House. This one is CT014. Then we will be using the Sweet Poppy Aperture Snowflake Square Stencil, which is this one right here. This one is SP6125SS. For our stamping for the black ink, we're going to use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. We'll be using Distress inks for the basic background stenciling, stenciling, and we will be using two colors for that. We'll be using the Distress Salty Ocean and the Distress Chipped Sapphire. Then we will be painting with our inks the cabin or the house there that you can kind of see. And we can use two different methods to do that. We can either use our distressed inks, or we can use our watercolor pencils. If you don't have the watercolor pencils yet, then you can definitely use your distressed inks. So the colors that we're going to be using for that is going to be the Rustic Wilderness, which is the green, the Fossilized Amber, which is the yellow, the Walnut Stain, which is the brown, and the Seedless Preserves, which is the purple. For our snow effect, I don't know if you can see that very well, we're going to be using the Fluff It paste, which is made by Pink Ink Designs. There are different textures that you can use for snow, but this happens to be the one that I have on hand, so this is the one that we'll use today. I'll be using just my brushes and some little small daubers for applying color. And then we will be using paintbrushes. I'll be using two different paintbrushes. I want one with a fine point, and I want one that's kind of a flat. We'll use the flat one for applying our Fluff It paste and the pointy one for our watercoloring. We're also going to be using a little circle mask. The one I have is 3/4 of an inch. As you can see, I've got a little bit of painter's tape on the back of it. I just like to stick my circle masks down so that they stay in place while I'm doing my work. We're also going to use either an adhesive running tape when we are putting our card together, or you can use the Ultra Bond adhesive clear glue. That works very well, or any other clear glue that you have, but those are the ones that I really like to use. And then to put our tape, to tape our project down, I like to use the Sweet Poppy low tack tape. So now we are ready to begin our project. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is start out with doing our stenciling. So I'm going to set this aside and move my inks off. And then we are going to start out with our Sweet Poppy stencil. So I'm going to pull it out of the package here. I like to use a magnetic base that helps to hold the snowflake or any of your middle stencils in place so that they don't shift around a whole lot. So what I'm going to do is take my piece of cardstock that we've got here. I'm going to lay it down on top of my magnetic board, and then take my stencil and just center it in the card. So let's get that as centered as we can on all edges. Now it does still move around a little bit, and what I like to do to make sure that it stays pretty in place is I like to take a little bit of painter's tape and then just go ahead and tape it down to my work surface. I'm really bad about bumping my work around, so this just kind of helps me to make sure that it stays in line and I don't have to worry about accidentally shifting it and while I'm working on it and making it where the design gets off. Now we do want to make sure that it doesn't go over the edge. We don't want it to cover up any of our paper. Alright, my last piece here. Okay, so now we're ready to begin. So I'm going to start out with the Salty Ocean. I've got just a small one here. Let's see. I'll just go ahead and use a small one. I have a bigger ink pad somewhere, but since this is the one that I've already got out, we'll just use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and just start with the border and just do circles. Now it doesn't matter when you're doing this if you have light spots and dark spots. It doesn't have to be all solid, the same darkness or the same heaviness. That actually gives it a really neat effect if it's not necessarily all uniform. For the border, I do want it to be just a little bit heavier than what I'm going to do in the center. Alright, so now before I actually move on to the center, I want to go ahead and lay down my masks. So what I'm going to mask off is, first of all, it's going to be my little moon mask. So I'm just going to place my moon somewhere right in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to take my little house stamp, and we're actually going to place that quickly down on my stamping platform. And we're just going to do a very quick little stamp onto our scrap paper that we will then cut to use as a mask. So I'm just going to lay that there real quick. And this doesn't have to be a good impression, just needs to be good enough so that I can see where I need to cut. So I'm going to ink up my stamp a little bit. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about getting it perfect. I just need to get an impression. Alright, and then I'm going to set my platform aside for now. We'll use it again in a few minutes. So I've now got my impression. So what I'm wanting to do is I want to make sure that I keep my snow white. I don't care on the roof if we get a little bit of the blue coloring, because we're going to be using the Fluff It paste over it. So what I'm going to do is just take my pair of scissors and just cut out along the edge of where the snow meets the house. And then I'm going to use that lower part as my mask. Alright. So I am going to actually kind of get a general idea of where I think I'm going to want that to be. And then I'm going to just kind of get an idea with my fingernail there of where to cut. I'm going to cut it slightly bigger just so I'm sure that I don't get my ink in the wrong place. But I need to make it narrow enough that it's not going to cover up where I'm going to be stenciling. Alright, so that looks like that's going to fit pretty well. So I will take some of my tape, and we're just going to roll that like that, put that behind, and stick it down. So that creates our little mask here. Alright, so let me trim just a little bit off. Alright, so now I have got that down, and what I'm going to do then, going a little bit lighter with the salty ocean, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of a sky background down. Pick that little piece up that fell off. So just very, very lightly. Get just a little down for the sky. And if you find in these places that you feel that you want just a little bit more ink on your edging there, we'll just touch that up just a little bit. Alright, and so now we have got a little bit down right there for a sky. Now we're going to take our chip sapphire, And what I want to do with the chip sapphire on the frame is just kind of put it in various little spots. We're just going to try and get some darker, almost like darker low light tones there. So I'm just going to put a little bit in here and there. Being very careful not to get over into where my main picture is going to be. Alright. Just a little bit of hint of the darker blue. Alright. Alright, so now we will be ready to move on to doing a few little highlights in and then stamping our image. So before we move on to the actual stamping of the image, let's go ahead and put an aura around our little moon there. So we're going to take the chip sapphire and then just one of our little daubers here. A piece of fuzz on there, let's get that off there. And we're just going to put just a little bit of an aura around the outside edge of the moon there. Alright. And then I'm going to go ahead and soften that just a little bit more by getting a little bit more of the Salted Sanctuary. We'll just blend it all out just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit more of the sky color in there. Alright. And so now we are ready to go ahead and remove our stencils and our masks. So let's go ahead and put these aside. I'm going to pull up the tape. And we will remove the stencil from the magnetic background and take off the metal stencil as well. Set that aside and we can remove our moon mask. There's our moon with our little bit of an aura there. And then finally, we will remove our little snow area. Okay, so now what I think I would like to do is go ahead and we are going to do our stamping of the scene onto our card. But what I want to do is go ahead and put this down on my stamping platform. So I've got that placed down. I've got a little sticky grid down so it holds my card in place without having to use any magnets. Now I'm going to take my Sweet Poppy tape. This is the low tack tape. And I'm going to mask off my white areas so that I don't get any ink on those. I'm real bad about accidentally either going too far out or setting something down on my white areas that I don't want any color on. So I'd just rather be safe than sorry. And then finally what we're going to do is we're also going to go ahead and mask off the white edge on the inside part as well. So we're going to take our tape, and I like this low tack tape because you don't have to worry about it messing up what you've already stamped. It'll pull off nicely and smoothly and not pull up any of the design or ink that you've already done. Alright, and now once we get this done, we will be ready to, sorry, just dropped something there. Knocked it off. Alright. Last piece. And as I was saying, now we are ready to do our stamp. Alright. I'm going to line that up with where we had our mask. Close my lid. Now I'm going to ink up my stamp. Got a little bit on my platform door, so I'm just going to take a little piece of paper towel, clean that up because I don't want that to get on my card. And stamp our image down. Alright, I don't think that's quite dark enough, so I'm going to take just a little bit more ink. Alright. And let's see if I like that image. I'm going to do just a tiny little bit. It'll feel like right here we're not getting as good of an image as I would like to have. So let me do that one last little touch-up spot right there to give a little more definition. There we go, much better. Alright, I'm going to cover that up. Okay, so now we have our image stamped down, and we're ready to go ahead and put in just a little bit of color. So what I'm going to do, and like I said before, you have two choices. So we're going to do a little bit of just got a little watercolor effect in our building here. So you can either use your walnut stain ink or your walnut stain watercolor pencil. If you use your ink, and what we're going to do is we're just going to get just a little bit of water. Let me pour some water out of this into a little cup that I have here. Alright, so I've just got a little bit of water here in the cup. I'm going to take my pointed brush, get it wet, and then if you're going to use your ink pad, all you do is just take your brush, dab it into the ink on your ink pad, and then just begin filling in color here where you would like to put the brown. So this is one way of doing it. If you don't have the pencils, or the same concept with the pencil, is you just run your brush, slightly damp brush, across the pencil. Go back in here, fill in a few of the shadows. And then we'll go over and continue to fill in the color on the house. Remember, if you want a little bit lighter color, use a little bit more water on your brush. And when you want darker color, then you just let it dry just a little bit. And dab it on your pencil or on your pad, and you get a little bit darker color. Gives us just a little bit of shadowing. All right. Then I'm going to put just a tiny little bit on our fence here. And then finally on our chimney. All right, so now we are ready to, whoops, let me go ahead and I missed our dormer there. Let me get a little bit of the brown on our dormer. All right. I think also I'll put just a little bit right here around our walkway. Maybe just a few little spots and dashes around it. Alright, so we're going to rinse out our brush pretty well in our water, and then I'll just wipe it off with a paper towel before moving on to another color. And we're going to go on to the fossilized amber so that we can put some light in our windows. Just adding just a little bit of yellow there, so that it looks like our family is home. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the seedless preserves, because our family likes to have a nice bold front door, so we're going to make that purple. Okay, and then finally we're going to put just a little touch of the green, which I'm using Rustic Wilderness. Again, you can use your pencil or you can use your ink pad. And since our branches are topped with snow, we're just going to kind of fill in some down beneath the snow. The parts where it's kind of peeking out from the snow that's laying on the branches. And we can't forget our little tree over here on the other side as well. All right. Now, I think what I would like to do is go ahead and add just a few little kind of hills around in our snow. We just want to kind of make it not look quite so flat. So, let's see. I think I want to use one that's a little more torn. Edges here. So we look like the snow is kind of drifting. And we'll go ahead and use our Salty Ocean. And we're just going to barely brush up just a little bit to give just enough of a little shadowing there to look like we've got some hill or mounds of snow. And maybe one just coming a little bit. Like that. And then we can maybe go back in with just a little bit of the brown, the walnut stain. Let's water it down a little bit so that it's not too strong. And we're just going to put a few little touches to kind of give a little effect of the ground. Don't want too much, just a little bit here and there. Put some around the base of the lamp of the fence posts. We're just doing this to give it a little more reality and to also do a little bit of grounding. Okay. So we are now done with the painting part, and we can go ahead and put in I tell you what, we'll just put a little bit of clouds across our sky, and then we can work on doing our Fluff It paste. We'll use the same mask that we used with the hills, snow mounds, but this time we're going to use the chipped sapphire to get the clouds going across the sky and across the moon. And again, we're just barely flicking across the edge. So we're just wanting to get the effect of a little bit of wispiness, like some clouds floating over. Okay. Now let's go ahead and move on to our Fluff It paste. For putting our Fluff It paste on, we're going to go ahead and use our flat brush. What we're going to do is just dab a little bit of this, starting on our roof. And literally just dipping into the paste and then dabbing it where we want it. And like I said earlier on, I don't mind having the blue because I think that gives the right color, because we won't see pure white on our roof like we might on our ground. So I think it just adds it a little bit of reality with the color. We've got a little bit on our window sills. I'm just going to dab a little bit. And then we want it across our little balcony here. And then finally, we'll put just a little bit on our trees. We don't necessarily have to put a whole lot on there, but just enough to kind of get the idea of the snow. A little on this tree over here. And then finally we're just going to put a few little dashes around the base of the fence there, and then just kind of randomly in the yard. We don't want it solid. We want it to look almost like we've got little drifts. Maybe a little bit around the base of the house there where it's piled up. Alright. There we go. So now what we need to do is go ahead and take our heat tool. Get this closed off so it doesn't dry out. So we're going to take our heat tool now, and we're just going to heat it up a little bit. And this is what makes the fluff it paste actually fluff up. Okay, now we can go ahead and remove our tape. And see if you can kind of see the texture there, where when we did the heat it made the snow puff up and look texturized. So now we're down to the final stage where all we're going to have to do is put our card together. So we will take our frame and for speed I will go ahead and use the running tape. But as I said earlier, you can use the Ultra Bond or any of the clear drawing glues that you like. I really like to use the Ultra Bond because it's got that fine tip. So if I ever need to do small areas of gluing, then I know that I can get just a very tiny little amount with that tiny tip. Alright, let's get this lined up. Make sure it's all stuck down, and then we will adhere that to our card base. Kind of hard for me to see, so I'm going to take a little white piece of paper here. That way I can see my edges a lot easier. And we line that up. And there's our card. Now, if you'd like to, you can put a sentiment on the inside. This is on the first one that I did. I just did Silent Night. I like for my cards to be able to be reused, so I actually use little photo corners right here. It's kind of hard to see because I use the clear ones. And I slide my inside card in. That way, when I pass this on to the recipient, then if they want to recycle it and pass it on to someone else, then it's easy to do. Just take it out and pop in a new sentiment. And there's our card. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope you enjoy using the stencil, adding a few touches to the house for the kind of a watercolor look, and playing with a fluff it paste or a snow effect textures to create some depth. Remember to check out the bellosdesigns.com website for more tutorials on the design team page. Have a great day.